Hello everyone, welcome to tutorial 8 of LTEC 620. In this tutorial we are actually going to focus on designing the right side of the Aikido flyer. And so to do that, let's see where we're starting off. I'm starting off right where we ended with tutorial 7, and you can see here I've got the left column in place. And the only thing that I've done is I've renamed my file to be tutorial 8, that's all. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm actually going to get rid of a lot of these guidelines that I used to line up the text and the photograph for the left-hand column. So I'm going to get rid of these. And the way I can get rid of them is just click on them and drag them up to the ruler and they will disappear. And so I'm going to get rid of all of these that we used on the left-hand column because they're just going to be adding visual noise and confusion. And for the vertical guides, you can just drag them over to the left and get rid of them, just like that. Okay, very good. Now we have a much cleaner workspace to work in. So now what I want to do is create a new layer, and I am actually going to call this right column. And it should already be locked, but make sure left column is locked from the previous tutorial. We're not going to touch that. So what we're going to do is focus on right column now. So let's click on the original and study a little bit. So the first thing that we can tell is let's focus on this black box up here at the top. So what we're going to need is a horizontal guideline somewhere around here, which is going to give us the dimensions of that black box. So let's go ahead and build that. So let's turn off this visibility, and in right column, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select my rectangle tool, and then I'm just going to drag and drop a box like that. Now, to recreate the original, which was a black background, so I'm going to give it a black fill. And then for the stroke, I don't want this to have a stroke, so I'm going to set its style to be non-existent, just like that. Now, I'm going to come back over and let's make sure our snapping is on. Yes, it is. And this should be really easy to put into place, just like that. And let's select that, and notice this is a child of right column. And let's just call this black box so it has a meaningful name so we can remember what it is. Okay, good. Now I know we need to add some text to that. So let's see, beginner class, and then a little bit more. So let's go ahead and add that text in. And again, so that I can work with both, I am going to go side by side. So this is one of the advantages of having a big monitor, is I can look at things side by side. And actually, let me give myself a little bit more space so I can work just like this. Okay, let me bring this up. Very good. So we have our black box here, and now what I want to do is select my tool, and I'm just going to leave the font to Arial, nothing fancy there. And importantly, I want to make sure I switch colors. And you can choose any of the palettes here. I happen to have this already here, but if you can't find pure white for some reason, you could come to swatches, grays, and then click on white. And for size-wise, let's just start with something, say, around 20. And I noticed that this text is beginner and then class, something like that. So that is going to be one piece of text. Now I'm also going to add in another one, and this text looks quite a bit smaller, so I'll go down to 16, and I'm just going to recreate what is there. And then we'll do one last piece of text down here, and we'll say 8-week course $95, just like that. Okay, very good. Now the first thing that I want to do is notice a couple of things. I notice that the text on the middle and the bottom of the original flyer is not bold. So I am going to select these, and I'm going to turn off bold, and I'm going to turn off bold. Very good. And now another thing that I want to do is I want to center this text against this black box. So with all three of those selected, I'm now going to click on the black box. And here in my context tool, I'm going to tell Affinity to line everything up to the center. Boom, just like that. Now I'm going to deselect that, and I need these fonts to be centered. Right now, by default, they're left justified. I want them all to be centered, just like that. Okay, very good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the visibility of the original, and I am going to just put in some lines here at the bottom of each of these pieces of text. So I can kind of tell where they should be to recreate these pieces of text. Okay, so let me hide that. And now the first thing that I notice is that the beginner class text should be bigger. And so I am going to, let's kind of make something like maybe 30. Let's try that. And I want to get beginner text right there. So I need to go full screen. And with this text selected, I want to come to this menu right here, which is the paragraph leading. And essentially I want to change this so that that class gets down to about that second horizontal guideline. And 52 doesn't quite make it. 54 does. Okay, that's pretty good. We're not striving for perfection here. And with this text now, this needs to come down. And what I want to do is switch the spacing to be the default, which is so it's kind of bunched up there. Let me turn on the original and see how far. I'm going to drag one more. So that third line of this middle text should be down here. And so let's just increase. I'll go up a little bit in size, maybe up to 18. Now, can we go to 20? I think we can. And then let's just increase the spacing here. 30 is a bit too much. 24 is not enough. So let's try 28. That's too much. Let's try 26. Good. That's good enough for what we're doing. And then finally, we want to get this last. Let's get this up to 24. And let's bring it down so it's right on that line. Now we've moved around quite a bit, so let's select all of these pieces of text again. I'm holding down the Shift key there, which allows me to multiple select. I'm going to click the black box, and again, I'm just going to click this Align to Center button so I know they're all lined up. Okay, beautiful. Not bad. Okay, now what's next? Let's turn on the visibility of the original. And the next thing I notice is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks of text. And they are divided by these horizontal lines. And so what I'm going to do is find the left side of these horizontal lines. And it looks like they're not consistent, which is interesting. And just do something like this. And now I'm going to place a horizontal line approximately where each of these horizontal dividers is, just like that. Okay, very good. Now I'll shut off the visibility. And now with my pen tool right here, I'm going to click that, make sure I'm in line mode, and then I'm just going to click, and put in those lines real simple, just like that. And let's see, if I get rid of my guides, I can see I have my lines there. Okay, very good. And those lines are meant to mimic the 3 that you see here. Very good. Okay, now let's turn our guides back on. We're going to want some more of that. And I'm actually going to get rid of these horizontal lines now because they may just get in the way. It'll be a little overwhelming for us visually, and I will get rid of those. Okay, so it's time to rename these layers so that they have meaningful names. So let's see here. This one is actually top H divider, and H of course means horizontal. And let's call this middle H divider. You could call it whatever you want. And this is going to be bottom H divider. Very good. And I'm just going to rearrange these so they're in a logical order from top to bottom. Whoops, I actually made that a child. Okay, very good. And okay, so now what we have to do is insert some text. So I'm going to snap this over so I can see the original, and just going to zoom in a bit so we have a good look at what we need to type. And I'm going to turn off the visibility of the original. I'll grab the text tool, and Arial regular 24, that's fine. Nothing fancy here. And let's go ahead and type in this adult class. Oh, whoops, it looks like I have it as white text. So I'm going to select that. I just did Control A or Command A, and I'm going to switch to swatches, and I want it to be black, just like that. And then I'm going to come back into this text box, adult class 12 and older, period, new line. Let me fix that, and let's get this centered in here. Now that's obviously a bit too big, so I'm going to select all of that text, and let's drop it down to 20. See how that feels. Okay, not bad. Good. And now let's see, we're going to need another text box down here. So let's go ahead and put that in. And this says regular classes, new line. Okay, very good. And I'm going to select this and I'm going to bring the font size down and situate it something like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. And I do notice that regular classes is bold. So I'm going to, in the interest of recreating the original, regular classes is bold. Now I'm going to add yet another piece of text here. Now I notice this text is a little bit smaller in the original. So let me come down to 20. And let's see here. Whoops, did that change? Yeah, make sure that's 20. And I notice this is all caps. Please come and exclamation point. And let me bring this over. And that's quite a bit bigger than the original. So let's drop this down. I'm even going to go to 16. We'll adjust the spacing of the lines here in a minute. And finally, we have one last piece that we have to put in here. And with my text tool, I'm just going to click. And okay, let's see, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Okay, let me Peverly. And then let's see here, there's a bit more text. I'm going to make this smaller. Let's come down to 16 while we're working here. And in all caps, call 603-431-8560. Let me scroll down so you can see that. And then, of course, www.portsmouthaikido.com. Okay, very good. Now what we want to do is try to match the spacing of between these lines of text. And so how can we do that? Well, let's come up here and let's focus in on this. Make sure this first line is selected. And let's take a look at the original. So let's see, it's got something here and that last line fell to about there. Okay, so that kind of gives us a guide. So we're not far off, but our spacing is probably a little bit too much. So let's drop this down to 24 and then select this and bring it all down so it lines up. Okay, very good. And now let's do the same thing for the regular class. So using a guideline, regular class goes here and Sundays it goes about there. So let's see, how are we doing here? Let's turn off the visibility. And again, I think this is too much. Let's drop it down to 24. See if we can get pretty much the same thing. There we go. Yep, very good. Now let's tackle this one and let's see here. This is the all caps and it looks like it's bold, so that's important. And right there. So let me switch off the visibility. Okay, we're going to select all that text and we need to make it bold. And now our spacing is really too much. So I'm guessing it's more like, let's see, what's the default look like? Let me see here. That's not bad. I'm going to just use the keyboard to inch this down a little bit. Yeah, that's good enough. That's good enough. Very, very good. And now let's focus on this last little bit here. So we actually have Portsmouth falling right there. Then we have the address ending right there. And then we have the call falling right there and Aikido coming, or the web address falling right there. Okay. All right. So actually what I'm going to do is make this into a separate piece of text. So I'm actually going to say edit, cut, and now I'm just going to paste it in as a separate item there. That's going to give us a little bit more control. So this looks pretty good, but the spacing's a bit too much. So let me come to 24, and that's a bit too much. Let's come down to 20 and just increase the font size. Get rid of these extra lines in here. Whoops. Hampshire. Can I go up to 20? I think I can. Yeah, very good. And let's make the spacing 22. Now that's pretty good right there. And I want call to start right here. Now this should be a bit bigger based on the original. And that should be, let's fix the spacing between this, maybe 24. There we go. Okay, so let me go ahead and turn off our guides so we get a nice clean look at what we've designed here. And of course, we did this deliberately to be the same as the original. And if I collapse my layer and lock it now, what I can do is just toggle between the original, which of course is a little fuzzy and not quite right. One last thing that I want to do is with the right column, I'm going to grab my move tool and I'm going to select all of these boxes of text and I'm going to grab this black box and I want to align them all to the center, just as a little bit of cleanup there to get everything lined up nicely. Okay, that's all the time for this tutorial. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you in Canvas.